welcome. This is kind of totally weird. I have to say, I don't know that I love virtual. So we are going to get started. And hopefully you can see it. If you can't, tell me. Hopefully you can hear. If you can't, tell me. We will just, we'll go. One of the things, this welcome, it's called Tier to Teach, Effective Tier 1 Strategies in the Classroom. I'm anxious to learn from you as well as you learning from me. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you'll just remember, I think you're all automatically muted. But if you want to comment, go ahead and use the chat box, or you can just unmute and comment, because I love your comments. Also, we are going to be participating in Jamboards just to mix it up a little bit. So if you are on a phone or a tablet, you may need to download the app. But the links I just put in there, the first one we're going to be doing in just a minute will be the job description. And then we will get going. So if you will download that app, we're going to go ahead and get started. Just to introduce myself, if you're not familiar, I have 6 children. This is a little bit of an older picture, but these are my 6 curly-headed kids. And then I am now a new grandma of a little boy, and so it's actually kind of cool, kind of fun. So I am a learning coach, an instructional learning coach for the Washington County School District Preschool. This is my 12th year in early childhood education. I love early childhood education. I graduated in elementary ed, but I found my niche in early childhood. I love the English language learners. My passion is learning how to teach them better, as well as children in trauma. And lately, because of my job, I've been able to learn a lot about behavior and the difference it makes in a classroom. And then also, I just have to put out a plug for the new early childhood learning standards. I love the new learning standards. If you delve into them, you'll find that they're very intentional and they're amazing. So what I want you to do today, this is going to be kind of tricky. I want you to click on the Jamboard link I put in. I may need to put it in again, for those that are just coming in, and I'll do that. But if you will click on the Jamboard link and go in, and will you please click this Post-it note right here? And it's going to give you a Post-it note. Just move it around, and I want you to type in your job description. Maybe you can just say you're a CDA and you teach in a Title I classroom, or you teach in a special education classroom. If you'll just type that in really quick for me, I'm going to go there. It'll let me. So make sure that someone's put it on mine. I need you to put it over here. Click on yours right there. Kind of tricky. I was doing it with this is new for me, but I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So I was doing it with my daughter and my husband. I put them on a Zoom link with me, and it was kind of funny. My husband drew the most amazing picture on this. So this is actually really fun if you want to play with it afterwards. So we've got CDAs, we've got a preschool teacher of the deaf, special education teacher, good. Preschool instructional coach, intensive behavior interventionist, sped para, itinerant special education teacher, preschool teacher, got all kinds. Cool. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of know my audience a little bit. And I know some of you probably couldn't get in, but I'm sorry. So that hopefully I wanted a little bit of an idea. So let's go back. If you'll go back into your Zoom meeting, we're going to just keep going. So first of all, what I want you to think about is I want you to think about your students. Think about each one of them a little bit, their names, who they are. And then as you do that, I kind of want you to think about who do you think of first when you think of your students? Do you think of those students that exhibit behavior, or do you think of those that just sit quietly and do whatever they're asked? If you want, just a couple of you throw in the chat box some your thoughts on that. What did you think of very first? Or you can unmute and tell me. I thought of behaviors first friend. I thought of students with behaviors. Let's see, behaviors. I thought of 2 students that have challenging behaviors. Isn't that interesting? My newest student who doesn't speak English, great. Those that have behavior issues. And I think every one of us, regardless of whether we're the IBI or whether we're the SPED para or whether we're the classroom lead teacher, all of us know, we kind of think of those we're going to say hard kids today, those hard kids first. So hopefully this will be beneficial for you a little bit. Oh my God, this is not. So what we're going to do today, there's 3 levels of support, 3 tiers. Today we are going to focus really just on tier 1. And what that looks like, I'm trying to see, first of all, the tier 1, that's like 80 to 85% of your students with really good core classroom instruction and interventions that we're going to talk about today. These students behave beautifully. Then you have the tier 2, which is kind of targeted small group instruction. That's 10 to 15% of your kids, and maybe it's more, maybe it's not, depending on whether you're in a SPED classroom or not. And then in your tier 3, it's interesting because as I talk to some people in my district, people have different opinions what tier 3 is. Some say it's severe, you're totally in a different school, in the hardest one. One thing that everybody agrees on is that it's one-on-one instruction with a child. So that's kind of to differentiate. What we're going to do today is we're going to focus on that tier 1, that 80 to 85% of your classroom, because statistically it is shown that if you have those classroom management strategies in place in the tier 1 strategies, you will 80 to 85% of the behavior in the classroom will be taken care of. And I know that as I've gone in to help with teachers that have said, hey, please come in, I've got these hard kids. I've taken IBIs in, and when they go in, a lot of times they'll say, we cannot do tier 2 interventions until we set up these tier 1 strategies. So they are so important, because without them, it's hard. It's hard. I don't know if you've ever heard of Trisha Stiles. She's with Safe and Civil Schools. But one of the things she says is if you have 20% of your students that have 20% or more of your students that exhibit behavior, it is a system problem. And granted, this is I want to be careful, because in a SPED classroom, you may have that. But in a gen ed, in a tier 1 classroom, if 20% or more of your kids exhibit behavior, it's a system problem, which means you need to do something different about what's happening in your classroom. So hopefully that makes sense. Please, if you have it, put in the chat if you have a question or say something. So right now, what we're going to do, I know that I have a lot of my Washington County School District preschool program with me today, and a lot of the Title I teachers have heard all this, but hopefully it'll be a good review. We are going to be talking, if you'll look in the folder that has been, there's a link in the Midas for a folder. If you go into my folder, there's a pre-intervention classroom management checklist. So this is just, when we say pre-intervention, this is if you have this system in place, if these strategies in place, this should fix 80 to 85% of your behavior. And again, this is talking gen ed. We're not talking about a SPED classroom that has really hard behavior or life skills classroom. So hopefully that's a little bit more. So we're going to talk first about nurturing and responsive relationships. First of all, number one, are you playing with your students at recess? And when I say playing, do you have a plan in place? Do you have a structure or a routine? Do you have their goals, the IEP goals? Are they social goals? Are they cognitive goals, gross motor goals, whatever that looks like? Do you know that, so that when you're out playing with your students, instead of just sitting and talking to the other teachers, because I know sometimes recess, you're just coming down, versus do you look at recess as an opportunity to share and to one more level of intervention with your students, whether it's interaction or whether it's intervention of IEP goals or just healthy, good interaction. Are you playing with your students at free centers? Again, once students, especially if you're in the Eckers, if you go into free choice centers, are you going, okay, this is the time I'm going to hurry and prep. This is the time I've got to hurry and answer this mom's email, or this is the time I need to clean up my desk because we just did glitter or we painted all over. Or is this the time that you, again, make it intentional to your interactions and to the students, that you're building that rapport, those good relationships with those students. So I'm going to kind of be going fast because we don't have a lot of time, but I want you to be thinking, do you interact with your students in a welcoming manner? This should include saying hello, using the student's name, getting down on eye level and talking with the students. What does it look like when they enter that classroom? What is that routine that they know every day their teacher's there to greet them? She's not busy. Sometimes you have to be talking to parents, but hopefully there's a routine and a structure in place that you are greeting and you're welcoming your students in a healthy, appropriate, developmentally appropriate manner for these students. And so, and then the next question is, I've got to move this over. I don't know what that looks like for you, but do you know your students' likes and dislikes? So again, you know, as we look back at how you say hello, what does that look like? To some students may not want to be touched. Some students may need some kind of a side hug or a fist bump. If you know your students, you're going to know what they need, where they're coming from. And I know one classroom, they had a little boy, a couple of little boys that were coming in from daycare. And I know this happens a lot, but they were always high strung and just buzzing. So this teacher knew that sometimes that when that child came in, number one, there needed to be a lot of positive reinforcement, a lot of positive interaction. And some kids needed to go straight to like a cozy corner or just a space where they could come down from where they've been. So there you go. So always have a purpose or a structure and a routine when we talk about playing with your students or being with your students and interacting with them. What is your purpose? What is your structure? What does your routine look like? All right, so do you strive to interact? And this is a really hard one. Do you strive to interact more frequently with the students when they are engaged in positive behavior rather than when they are engaged in negative behavior? I'm sure you've heard of that amygdala that's in your brain that's kind of a fight or flight. We just naturally go to those kids that are harder and we look for that. Or if you walk into a classroom, do you see the negative behavior first or do you see the positive? Think about that a little bit. Paying attention to a child doing what they have been asked to do has a 90% chance of redirecting the problem. That's a pretty high rate of fixing it. But we have to retrain our brains to see the positive, to observe and be conscious of the positive things happening in our classroom. Again, do you look at the child that's whispering to their neighbor or do you look to the child that's sitting and following the expectations that you've set? It's kind of it is a hard thing to do because I don't think it comes naturally. The behavior you reward is the behavior you get. So if you're focusing on those students that are negative, you're giving them attention. You're rewarding that behavior. So food for thought. So what we're going to do, this is kind of a tricky exercise. We're going to use the chat box. I want you to, I'm going to read this scenario to you, and I want you to either put a positive or a negative in the chat box. Is this reinforcing positive or negative behavior? Jimmy is talking to his neighbor while you are trying to teach a small group with him. You turn to Jimmy and say, Jimmy, tell me about your picture. In the chat box, tell me if you think that is positive, if you're reinforcing positive or negative behavior. Okay, good. And it's really tricky because did you do it negatively? Were you really kind to Jimmy? Yes, you were. But you were still reinforcing that negative behavior. And granted, there are times when you have to do that. You don't have a choice. You have to reinforce, you have to stop a negative behavior if they don't stop, or they're not safe or endangering somebody else, or they're disrupting it totally. So let's try another one then. Maria keeps tapping her neighbor on the shoulder, trying to get her attention instead of engaging in the activity. You say to the other students around her, I like how you are keeping your hands to yourself, ignoring Maria. Okay, in the chat box again, what are your thoughts? Is that positive? Are you reinforcing positive or negative? Good. Okay, positive. You're reinforcing that positive behavior. And again, 90% of that time, if you will look for those that are doing what you expect and have given the expectations, a lot of times, again, in tier 1, you will correct that behavior. If you reinforce someone that's raising their hand, the person that's yelling out will do what? They will automatically raise their hand. So again, we're looking at tier 1 students. All right, so most of us come to these trainings because we want a solution for the behavior that happens 3% of the time. But in reality, the reality is the real solution is in our interactions that happen the other 97% of the time. So really quick, just 2 or 3 of you, will you give me a reason for that? Why is that? If you'll unmute and tell me why. The reality is that through that our solutions are in the interactions. What are your thoughts?
I'll add something really quick. Those relationships that you build with those students in that 97% of the time is actually what will help prevent the negative or the behavior that we don't want to see. And so if you have good interactions the other times, you're going to see less behavior. It's not going to go away completely, but if you're preventing it in that 97%, that's where you're going to see the decrease in the negative behavior.
Perfect. Thank you, Monica. Anybody else? Also, just as far as that 97% of that time, if you have those positive relationships and interactions with those students, then when you have to correct or help with those behaviors that are the 3% of the time, that relationship's there where you can correct and help and model that behavior, the correct behavior, but they will respond differently to you because they have a relationship with you. So when it is time to correct, you can do it. Anybody else have any comments? And someone said preventative measures happen before undesirable behaviors happen. Thank you. A lot of times, if they can't get positive, they're going to get, if they want attention, if they can't get the positive, they're going to go for the negative. So let's make sure to give them the positive. And that is from Totem Aspen training. If you haven't had that, it's amazing. So let's go to the high quality supportive environments. Let's look at your classroom and what it looks like there that will help just by setting up your environments to support our students in correct behavior. The first thing I want to talk about is, do you have a daily schedule posted, and is it large enough for all students to see? This is huge, huge. You can see kind of in one of my classrooms, they have, most of my classrooms, they have it across the bottom of the board. And the students, there's one of the jobs is to move that magnet, or there's an arrow or a smiley face that they track the schedule. And I've had multiple experiences, whether it's with a child screaming because they want to go home, by them being able to track, and sometimes that's who you give the job to, them being able to track that schedule, they can see when that stop sign is at the end, that's when I get to go back to mom. One teacher actually took a picture of the child that was struggling, and he moved that along the schedule, and it was so he could see exactly when he gets to go back to mom. I had a little English language learner that came. I had a teacher call me and said, I have this new student. He's been crying for the last half hour. He speaks no English. I speak no Spanish. Will you please come and help? Because I speak Spanish. And I got in there. And once I was able to calm him down and get him to the rug, all of a sudden he saw this visual schedule of the slide and started talking to me about it and said he'd been on there with his mom. That's all it took to have him sit there. And he knew that, and he knew that the magnet was right here, and then we were going to have a snack, and then we were going to go outside to play. And then this stop sign clear over here was, he got to go back to his mother. And so for those ELL students, this is huge. Or those low, maybe the cognitively delayed students, being able to just see autistic children, this visual schedule is huge for these students. So making it interactive, you would be surprised at how kids know exactly where they are. And then they will, if you've accidentally left this magnet or the arrow over here and you're clear over here, they'll let you know because they track it and they follow it. So with that, do you refer to and explain the daily schedule and make notes of any changes? If you're going to do the snack after recess, or you're going to do book time back here, have you changed it, and did you talk to the students about it? Because again, our trauma students, our students with maybe some special needs, they have that schedule and that routine is everything. Sometimes, again, with our trauma kids, their lives are so out of control. Change is a big deal. And I know with autistic kids, that routine is everything. You have to, so this visual schedule is such an amazing tool and strategy to help them know where they're supposed to be at. So have you taught classroom routine? Have classroom routines been established and routinely taught? There's something called the PR, the R cubed to 3, the routines times 3. Do you have routines within routines? What does that look like when they come in? What do they do? Do they know? I know I stepped in and taught a small group for a teacher the other day, and those kids knew exactly what that routine was. And they corrected me. And I think it was something little, like they were supposed to use their fingers and to track the ABC song chart. But I had not, they used their eyes to do something. And I had not said the right thing. And they told me this, you got to get your binoculars out. And I knew that they had been taught the routine. So are transitions between activities structured? This is a huge one. And this is my favorite. I love this visual. Do you have, this is Billy from Family Circus. Do you have any chill students that will transition like Billy does from A to B? Probably, because I think most classrooms, regardless of the classroom, that's what it is. So what do transitions look like for you? Have you, with the other teachers in the room, made a plan or made a zone, if you will, to where you know that maybe right now I have a small group where we're painting, it's going to take me longer, and you have large groups, so you're going to make sure that you go to Billy, take his hand, and we're going to walk to the large group together. Or maybe you're going to, while the other teacher is helping get kids finished up at small groups, you're going to make sure that there is a transition video on, or you're up front doing a finger play, something that's going to draw those kids from where they're at straight to the rug or straight to the small group. Maybe it's a picture that they're going to match with the picture of the table they're going to. Whatever that looks like, what are you doing? Transitions take up so much time if they are not scheduled and there's not a structure in place. So again, look at that. I would challenge you to print out each team, even if you've already done this, and go over this checklist again and see what it looks like for you. Are your classroom spaces clearly defined? Do students know where the large group is? Do they know what the cozy corner is and where it is? Do they know where the blocks and the book nook and dramatic play, have they been defined, and what do they look like? And I'll show you later some of the posters that you can do different things that will help with that. Do all of your students have a clear and unobstructed view of the teachers and the materials? Have you ever been reading a book and all of a sudden you realize that little Jimmy over there is totally gone? You've lost him. He's not engaged at all. But then you realize he's over in the corner of the rug and he has not seen one page of the book. Stop and look and make sure that you're aware, what does that look like? And not just that, but if you're in a small group with some students, can you see the other students in the other centers, and can they see you? So that everything, again, that unobstructed view is a big deal in a preschool classroom in helping with behaviors. Any comments, or I'm kind of just talking, any comments or concerns or thoughts? Please, I'm going to kind of watch the chat box, but
I have a comment really quick. I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize anything.
Good.
I like to go sit on the rug with the children when one of my aides is reading the book. I like to go move around and sit where they're sitting so I can see how they're viewing the book, because sometimes I can tell my aides, oh, you need to turn the book, or you need to turn your body because this student can't see from this angle. So when you're up teaching the book, you might look down and say, oh no, everybody can see it. But when you're on the other end, where sitting where they are, you have a better view of their position.
Right. Thank you. And to be honest, all 6 of my children wear glasses, and I know they've come home before and said, Mom, I can't see where I'm at. So being aware of just maybe some special needs that way, whether it's glasses or hearing or whatever it is, are they placed in a place where they can have a clear, not just a view, but be able to hear what's going on and see? So thank you, Monica. I appreciate that. And my thing is too, if you're down by the students, number one, you'll be able to see if they can see, but you're also building that rapport. Some kids love just having you right next to them. So again, you're having those positive interactions. Thank you. Are the classroom rules or expectations posted, and have they been systematically taught and reviewed? Everybody does things differently. This is from Tricia Stiles in the CHAMPS program. I've taken it down to preschool level so that at rug time, we're reviewing the voice levels. We're reviewing what we're going to be doing. We're going to, the expectations. And this works amazing for a gen ed classroom. This isn't as effective for children with autism. Children with special needs need more of the real people. I know one of my teachers actually takes pictures of her students and creates rule cards that she posts on her board. But how often are you? Sometimes, especially at the first, you're having to go over the expectations every 2 or 3 times per group. Are you doing that? Are you going over them to where if you were to hold this picture up, did they know exactly what that picture says? Or if you were to hold this up, if you put a 0 for quiet mouth, do they know exactly what that means? Make sure that your expectations are being stated frequently. Is there a group reinforcement system in place that is more than a verbal praise? And what that looks like, again, we have these kids, a lot of trauma kids, a lot of poverty kids have never learned this intrinsic self-regulation or reward. Just by sitting quietly, they get that reward of I'm doing what I've been asked. A lot of our kids do not have that. They have to have the extrinsic rewards to be able to self-regulate because they have not been taught. So, because I've had teachers say, I don't agree with extrinsic rewards. That works great for some of your kids that have a perfect life at home and have been taught all of that. But a lot of more and more, we're seeing that these kids that are coming into our classrooms do not have that ability to self-regulate without some kind of a reinforcement. So these are just some that I've taken in my classroom. This one, teachers have put fall leaves in, they've put snowflakes in, they've put hearts in, and they've just kept it all year. They put magnets in. This one was just a small snowman that they just add little body parts. This one is a snowman with a little glass jar, and I know they've changed it. This changes to where, and this is just a little white pom-pom. This is a little bug jar that is just a magnetic, it's paper, and on your whiteboard or your chalkboard that they add, the students can add little bugs. At the first of the year, and depending on your class, you may have, like on this caterpillar, you may have 6 of the circles already there, and all you're trying to do is earn 3 of them. And maybe as you get more and more into the year, you can take away more of the circles and you're earning 6 of them. But this looks like, ooh, everybody's sitting crisscross applesauce. Ooh, I love how you came to the rug. I'm going to give you a circle. I'm going to give you a bug. Ooh, Johnny, come up and give us, come up and give us a snowman ball or a piece. Or come, let's feed the snowman a snowball. Whatever that looks like, you're reinforcing. Not only are you're restating the expectations as you give the group reinforcer, but then once they earn this, they have something to look forward to, and that can be something as simple as a quick brain break. That can be an edible, maybe an M&M. That can be, I've seen one of my teachers bought this little massage thing for $5 or $10 off Amazon, and she goes around and turns it on and just goes on their back quickly. It's a little tickle bug, she calls it. And again, you have to know your students. Some kids may not want that touch. Some kids may, and they love it. So you have to know your students. One teacher took a balloon and they would count. She had a little thing that could pump the air in and they'd count to 10. And then she was very explicit with her instructions and expectations. Now, when I let go of this balloon, it's going to fly. And then she chooses someone out of the choosing jar. So-and-so gets to go pick up the balloon. Now, are you going to get up and get the balloon? No, so-and-so's. So you have to be explicit, but it can literally take 10 seconds once you reach this. And again, at the first of the year, you may be wanting to get all 3 circles 2 or 3 times during the large group. Because if we look at our instruction, if we do not have the instructional control, if we do not have the behavior classroom management down, our instructional control is not there and we can't teach. So even though you may be teaching this great lesson, if your students are not engaged and there's a lot of behavior, they're not getting anything out of it. So do not be afraid to stop the instruction and reinforce a ton, especially at the beginning of the year. And then sometimes they'd come back and I'm like, oh my heck, how long have we been in? And we're going to have to almost start all over again and do that high rate of reinforcement because maybe you've had a break, or maybe I almost felt like it was March is when I was like, whoo, we gotta really kick in our positive reinforcement and our group reinforcers because it's March. So there you go.
Jennifer, I have a question.
Yes.
My name is Michelle. I'm one of those people that have an issue with group reinforcements.
Okay.
But what you said earlier about not coming from a perfect environment, how was that stated again? Because it clicked with me, but I didn't quite understand what you meant. If that makes sense.
Thank you, that's a good question. As I've read books on trauma, basically what they said is these children, because of trauma, they do not have the self-regulation in place to have those intrinsic intrinsic rewards work. they're in a fight or flight, and they need they need something to look forward to, something that's visual and something that is something they can see and can take part in. They just cannot, they can't. They're in that fight or flight and that intrinsic. Well, because what happens if you want, this is a little bit off our topic. In a trauma brain, there's 3 parts to the brain. The lower part is just the survival part. Then you go into emotions, and then you go into the cognitive part. Those trauma kids, their brain stops developing in that survival mode. So they have not learned emotional or self-regulation parts of the brain yet, because they're just in the survival. So then when you say intrinsic, that's up in self-regulation. They do not have that. So this group reinforcer, these extrinsic rewards, is something, whether it's an edible or it's something visual that they can work towards, and it gives them something positive. It's just one more positive. And we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Thank you.
Does that help a little bit, Michelle?
Yes, thank you. I know this is off topic too, but do you have a really good book about trauma that will help? I mean, I know there's a lot of books out there.
You know what, Michelle, if you will, my email's at the end. If you will email me, I will send you a couple of books.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So is the group reinforcer being implemented by all staff members? Again, is that just the lead teacher that's doing this, or do you work as a team and you've got a plan in place, and all of you, it's not just the lead teacher that's doing the group reinforcer, but when that para steps up in front to help transition, are they using it as well? Okay, so again, feel free. And then, so this is another thing, is your schedule of reinforcement adequate? I would say as a teacher, this is the hardest thing to get down, because it's a lot of work. And again, we have to retrain our brain to see the positive instead of the negative, and retrain our brain to do it a lot. I was talking to Chris Weber, who is an amazing IBI in our group, in our district. And one of the things he said, really for a gen ed student, it should be almost every 30 seconds, there should be positive reinforcement happening in the classroom. That is a ton. Now, if you go into tier 2, it goes up to as much as 20 seconds. So what is your reinforcement? And so what I'm going to talk about a little bit more is your trauma again. Are you taking every moment to feel, sorry, that I totally fill each other up. That is a misspelled, F-I-L-L. Chris Weber gave me this pig, and I love this pig. This is a visual I get. If you look at your students in your classroom, some of your kids come in, and we just talked about those kids that come in, they're fed, they're bathed, they're dressed nicely, they've had a good night's sleep, they've been told they are loved, and they come in with their pig totally full, and it works. And they're the ones that can just sit so nicely and are just happy because they get it at home. Their pig is full. So when you put demands on them and you take out of their piggy bank, they can do what you expect because their piggy bank is full. Then you have those students that come in, they maybe went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. They may have, then their parents pulled them out at 5 to 9 so that they could be on time to school, or 20 minutes late at 9:20. They haven't had breakfast, or maybe they were given a brownie if they were lucky. And they haven't bathed, their dad just got put in jail yesterday. Where is their piggy bank? And go ahead and put it in the chat. Where do you think that piggy bank is of that student? Their piggy banks are negative, it's 0. Yeah, even negative or it's 0, they don't have anything to give. So then they come in there and you say, okay, little Johnny, we're gonna have you sit still. We're gonna have you learn. We're gonna have you be nice. They're hungry, they're tired. They've been told they're stupid, or they're in trauma because their mom just got put in jail last night, or their mom just got out of jail last night and came back into their lives. Whatever that looks like, their piggy bank is empty, and it's your job as a teacher to fill that piggy bank up. So I love this visual, and I would challenge you again. I can put it in the folder if you want it. Any of these resources, if you want, let me know and I'll put them in the folder. But I would challenge you to put this piggy bank on your board. And just to remind you, are you filling up these kids' piggy banks? You can get like a Gym Boss. It's like a little exercise timer thing on Amazon for 15 bucks that I've had some of my teachers put on their belts that vibrates every 30 seconds or sometimes every minute to remind them to do positive reinforcement. So whatever it takes, you have to fill their piggy banks before you can put those demands on them. And unfortunately, you may be the only one that fills their piggy bank up. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, let's move on. So is there also is there an attention signal to get students on task in less than 5 seconds? When it's time to clean up, or when it's time to, you've asked them to turn to a shoulder partner and talk about something, how do you get them back in? You know, I've seen the give me 5, that works wonderful. Some of these, and I've put this in our resource folder, there's a whole list of just attention signals where the teacher says hocus pocus and the class says everybody focus. Or I've heard class, class, and the students say teacher, teacher. I was in one room where they were doing macaroni and cheese, and then the students say everybody freeze, and towards the end of the day a student turned to the teacher and said, so when are we getting macaroni and cheese? So you need to make sure they understand what they're doing. But these are amazing as far as getting, you know, maybe you need to just freeze and tell everybody something. What is your attention signal to make it so that it's less than 5 seconds, and then you can go back, that instructional control. So if, again, there's a whole list of them in our folder. And then do you use a visual timer to alert children to transitions? This is, again, you'd be surprised at how children track the timer. And children with special needs, children with behavior, this is huge, because then not only can you start priming them for the transitions, if you can see there's 2 minutes left or there's 1 minute left, a lot of students with behavior, if you're alerting them of a transition and priming them, you will eliminate a ton of behavior by doing that. And then, so I just put a few, this one you have to pay, I think, $1.99. This you can just put on an an iPad or something, or even on your smart board, probably just on your iPad. But it turns yellow after, like within 2 minutes, and then red. So the students follow, and again, you'd be surprised how the students follow the timers. Do you have one? These two, there's a ton of them. These are just on the internet that I took pictures of from teachers that had them on their smart board. But the students know exactly when it's going to happen, and it just, again, eliminating that tier 1 behavior if they are primed and they know when it's time to transition. Any questions? Any other suggestions? So one of these, this is something that I see all the time. It's really little. But it is crazy how much I see it. Do you use precision commands to increase student compliance? Now there's precision commands that you would use in tier 2. I'm just going to keep it really simple with tier 1. And that is, do you use questions or do you use precision commands? And so some of those examples would be, Daxton, please push in your chair. That's a precision command. You're telling exactly what they need to do, versus, Daxton, will you please push in your chair? I think so many times we're trying to be these nice, kind teachers. We're polite. The polite way is to say, will you please do this? And it's funny because I've done it with my kids. Will you please go clean the bathroom? And they're like, no. And I'm like, let me restate that. Get your butt up and go clean the bathroom. Have you ever said that? Have you ever said, Daxton, will you please go push your chair in? And you've had a student say, nope. You're giving them an option when you ask the question. By doing precision commands, Lindsay, will you write your name? You're asking them, you're given an option to say, nope, thanks for asking, versus write your name for me. You can still do it politely. You can still put a please in there, but Carter, go get in line, versus Carter, will you go get in line? And this is another one that takes a lot of intentional thought, because it's just, I think it's normal as we just kindly ask students to do something. So there you go. Are you giving, I gotta keep track of the time. Are you giving clear and defined expectations at the beginning of each activity? Do the students know that what they need to do? And sometimes you get the middle activity and go, woo, we probably should have done this. But making sure if you've planned to where the students know exactly what's expected of them before you start the activity. Are the behavior expectations for the activity clear? Again, do you have a visual? And I'll show you some of those to where they know exactly what's expected of them. And then do they include what the beginning, middle, and end of the activity look like? A lot of students, if they know they have to go to the literacy table and they hate doing the literacy table, but they're going to be painting at the literacy table, we're going to say, okay, for today, we're going to be doing the ABC song. We're going to be doing guided reading, and then we're going to be learning about the letter F, and we are going to paint, or a letter E, and we're going to paint with a fork, Elmo. That's going to eliminate behavior because the students all of a sudden have something to look forward to. And lastly, do your instructions include modeling, role play, finished products, and non-examples? When you're doing something out of the ordinary, when you're teaching something for the first time, make sure that they know exactly what those expectations are and that you've modeled it or role played it. Good examples and not great examples. All right, really quick, are you giving the students opportunities to make choices? And I'm going to keep these simple. Again, we can go to tier 2 choices, but tier 1, please write your name. Do you want to use a pencil or crayon to do it? It is time to sit at the table, Colt. You can sit in this chair or that chair. Which do you choose? Would you like, and this is one that I learned later on in my teaching, was it's not always bad. Like if you have kids sitting at the rug, some kids cannot sit at the rug. It's hard for them either physically or it's just, they do so much better in a chair. So I would say, would you like to sit in your square or do you want to sit on a chair today? And that eliminated a ton of behavior, just having them sit up in a chair where they were more comfortable. And because otherwise they're rolling around on the rug. A lot of our trauma kids, their lives are totally out of control. If by giving them choices, you're giving them control, but you have to have those choices planned in advance so that you're okay with those choices. Any other, I'm sorry, we're going so fast. Are you utilizing group and individual visual supports in your classrooms, and what have you tried? Again, these are really good for Gen Ed. You're going to want to get more live pictures for kids with special needs. I created these for some of our classrooms for expectations. The bathroom, we go in with a 0, we go, we flush, we wash, we leave. Are we going over there? The math and fine motor center, soft voices, we take turns and we clean up. This is on some of my teachers' tables. The expectations of a small group is you sit, hands in lap, and you're quiet. So hopefully these, again, are for Gen Ed that you cut up, you put them on a lanyard, and all you have to do is maybe go and show a student to please sit quietly or to stand. Again, if you're interested in any of these, let me know and I can put them in I can send them to you. Are you using environmental strategies and what have you tried? That can be as easy as having a student sit alongside you at a smaller, large group or a snack table, moving academic materials, reinforcers, or closing centers. I went into a classroom the other day that they actually, it was a early young threes, and within a SPED classroom, and they had taken all their cabinets and literally blocked out 3 sides of the rug so that all those kids, they couldn't escape except for from the front, and they had that covered. And then within 10 seconds, when it was time for centers, they were able to move those out and it worked perfectly. So I was really impressed. So really quick, it is not reasonable to believe we should be more exhausted at the end of a great day than at the end of a bad day. You can choose to put more energy into some of these strategies we've talked than into those 3% of the behavior that will take you down fast. And then I love this quote from Safe and Civil Schools. The single most important thing a teacher can do to improve the overall behavior of students in their classroom and connect with students is to increase the number of positive or non-contingent interactions they have with each student. So just really quick, just basically that means you interact with those students positively enough that will change the overall behavior of most students in your 80 to 85% of your students in your classroom. So I know it's time to go. If you would like to go back to your exit ticket, there is a link that I probably need to share again really quick in the chat box. If you want to go in, if you'll just tell me one thing that you're going to take back and use in your classroom, I would appreciate that, just so that I can see that maybe you got something out of it. But I would love to see, I would love to just see, I've got some different ones in here. I think we got these from the last. Anyways, thank you very much for coming. Again, if you don't mind taking the time to just give me some feedback on what you got out of or what you're going to take back, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much for being here.